Hi, everyone, and happy Wednesday. I believe it is. Yes, Wednesday. So, the last couple of days we have been reading Ready, Freddy, Save the Earth, and today is Earth Day. Happy Earth Day. I hope you have been completing the challenges that I have given and that has been in this book. So, you can go green with us. So, today we're going to be reading chapters 5 and 6. Chapter 5 is called Plant a Tree. When we got to our classroom, Mrs. Wishy asked, "How many of you walked or rode your bikes to school today?" A bunch of hands shot up, and there was a chorus of, "I did, I did, I did." "Wow, that's great," said Mrs. Wishy. "Good for you." "I thought it was really fun," said Jessie. "Me too," I said. "Robbie, Freddie and I had a race to school," said Jessie. "Ha ha, that's funny," said Max. "I bet they beat the pants off of you." "Actually, Jessie beat both of us," said Robbie. "No way, a girl can't run faster than a boy," said Max. "Says who?" said Jessie. "Says me," said Max. "Well, you're wrong," said Jessie. "Girls can run just as fast as boys." "That's right," said Mrs. Wishy. "Girls can be very fast runners." "Jessie is probably the fastest kid in the whole first grade," I said. Jessie smiled. "Where's Chloe?" asked Mrs. Wishy. "I'm over here," Chloe called from the cubbies. "What are you doing?" Mrs. Wishy said. "Changing my shoes." "Did she say, changing my shoes?" Robbie whispered. I nodded. "Yep, you heard her right." "I had to wear my sneakers to walk to school today, and they didn't match my outfit," said Chloe. "I'm taking them off and putting on these pink party shoes instead." "Aren't they beautiful? And they match perfectly with my dress." "She's so weird," Jessie whispered. "Well, you might want to leave your sneakers on, Chloe, because right now we're going to go outside and plant a few trees," said Mrs. Wishy. "Really?" I said excitedly. "Really," said Mrs. Wishy. "That is so cool," said Max. "But my dress is going to get all dirty," said Chloe. "Then maybe you shouldn't wear your foofy dresses to school," said Max. "But my Nana just brought this one back from Paris, France." "I'm sure you'll get a little dirt on it." "I'm sure if you get a little dirt on it, your mother can wash it," said Mrs. Wishy. Chloe frowned. "I don't like dirt." "I love it," said Max, "and I love all the things that live in the dirt, like worms and bugs." "Ew, ew, ew," sighed Chloe. "Enough, you two," said Mrs. Wishy. "Let's all line up to go outside and plant some trees." We got in a line and followed Mrs. Wishy out to the playground. "One of our local stores donated these baby trees to our school. I thought we could use more shade on our playground," said Mrs. Wishy. "Good idea," I said. "It can get really hot out here." "When these baby trees get a little bigger, we can sit under them and cool off," said Jessie. "Besides giving us shade, does anyone know other reasons why trees are important?" asked Mrs. Wishy. "They make oxygen that we need to breathe," said Robbie. "If we didn't have oxygen to breathe, then we would die." "Really?" said Max. "Really," said Mrs. Wishy. "Wow, I never knew that," said Max. "These trees will also help us in another way," said Mrs. Wishy. "You know how the field gets very muddy when there's a lot of rain?" We nodded. "That's because all of the soil around the grass gets washed onto the field. If we plant the trees around the field, then the roots of the trees will help hold the soil in place, and it won't all wash onto the grass. You won't have to run around in muddy pools of water." "I always thought that the trees were pretty to look at," said Jessie. "I didn't realize how important they were." "And 900 million trees are cut down every year," said Mrs. Wishy. "Why?" I asked. "To make paper products." I shook my head. "That's crazy." Jessie shook her head too. "I just can't believe that." "If you use less paper, then fewer trees have to be cut down," said Mrs. Wishy. "It's that simple. Now is everybody ready to get started?" "Yes!" we all said. Well, everybody except Chloe. Mrs. Wishy put us in groups of 5 and gave each group a big shovel and one of the baby trees. You need to dig a deep enough hole so that we can set the tree down in the ground. Then once the tree is in the ground, you cover the roots up with dirt. Got it? She said. Got it, we all said. We spread out around the track and got to work. Digging the hole was hard, but really fun. Hey, look what I found, said Robbie, sticking his hand in the dirt and pulling out a bug. A roly-poly. It's so cute, said Jessie. Can I hold it? Sure, said Robbie. Cute? How can you say that disgusting thing is cute? Said Chloe. I wouldn't touch it if you paid me $1,000,000. You don't know what you're missing, said Jessie with a big smile on her face. Hey, Chloe, said Max. Come over here, I've got a surprise for you. Chloe ran over. I love surprises. Max pulled a big, fat, juicy worm out of his pocket and dangled it in Chloe's face. Chloe screamed, "Ah!" said, and ran over to Mrs. Wushy. Mrs. Wushy, Max just stuck a worm in my face. I think you'll be all right, said Mrs. Wushy. It's just a little worm. Worms are important for the environment, you know. Well, I don't like them, said Chloe. They are slimy and gross. Okay, everybody, it's time to go inside. Bring your shovels over to me and line up, called Mrs. Wushy. Boy, oh boy, the morning went quickly, said Robbie. Time flies when you're having fun, said Mrs. Wushy. It's already time for lunch. Woohoo! I yelled and pumped my fist in the air. I'm starving. I'm going to ask you for a special favor while you're at lunch today, said Mrs. Wushy. Please save all of your trash and bring it back to the classroom with you. I want to talk about it. Chapter 6, Worms and Trash. When the bell rang for the end of lunch, Chloe was about to throw out all of her trash. Wait, said Jessie, pulling her back from the trash can. Remember, Mrs. Wushy said we're supposed to bring all of our trash back to the classroom. But it's sticky and gross, and it's going to make my lunchbox all stinky, said Chloe, wrinkling up her nose. You are such a princess, said Jessie, shaking her head. Just give me your trash. I'll carry it for you. When we got back to the classroom, Mrs. Wushy had put some newspaper down on the floor. Please put your lunch trash on these papers, she said. We all pulled out our trash and piled it on the floor. Wow, that's a lot of trash, said Jessie. You can say that again, I said. Think about what you throw away every day at lunch, said Mrs. Wushy. My sandwich bag, said Jessie. The wrapper for my granola bar, I said. My napkin, said Max. I didn't even know he used a napkin, I whispered to Jessie. Jessie giggled. The bag for my chips, said Robbie. Now think about how much trash every school collects in one day, said Mrs. Wushy. All of that goes into landfills. What's a landfill? Said Chloe. It's a big hole in the ground where we throw all the trash that the garbage people collect, Mrs. Wushy said. There are a lot of landfills, said Robbie. Yes, there are, said Mrs. Wushy. If we aren't careful, soon our planet will be covered in trash, and this trash pollutes the air and water. That's disgusting, said Chloe. But what can we do about it? Said Jessie. All this trash does not have to go into the landfill, said Mrs. Wushy. What do you mean? Said Max. Well, some of this stuff can be recycled, said Robbie. Now you're on the right track, said Mrs. Wushy. If you have anything that can be recycled, then put it over here on this paper. I have a water bottle, Max said. I leaned over to Robbie and whispered, I brought a reusable water bottle today. That was number 4 on the challenge list. Me too, Robbie whispered back. I have the plastic container for my applesauce, said Jessie. Max poked Chloe. Hey, Ding Dong, you have something that goes in the recycling pile. Keep your dirty little hands off me, said Chloe. None of my trash can be recycled. Yes, it can, said Max. Oh, yeah? What? Said Chloe, glaring at Max. Your yogurt container? No, it can. Yes, it can. No, it can't. Yes, it can, said Max. Enough, you two, said Mrs. Bushy. Yes, Chloe, your yogurt container can be recycled. Well, my mom never recycles them at home. Now that you know that it can be recycled, you can tell your mom that, said Mrs. Bushy. Jessie picked up the container and put it in the recycling pile. Thank you, Jessie, said Mrs. Bushy. Jessie smiled. No problem, this is fun. Now, is there anything else we can do with this trash? Said Mrs. Bushy. We all stared at Mrs. Bushy and shook our heads. Well, all of us except Robbie, the science genius. We could compost some of this stuff, said Robbie. Hey, Brain, said Max, what's compost? You'd like it, said Robbie, because composting uses worms. Cool, said Max. Ew, said Chloe. I hate worms. But they help make the soil really good for planting, said Robbie. That's right, said Mrs. Wishy. If you have a compost bin, then you can throw some of your food in there, like this leftover sandwich crust or this banana peel. But isn't that just like throwing it away? I said. Not exactly, said Mrs. Wishy. If you throw the food scraps in the compost, then worms break down the food and use it to make really rich soil that is good for your garden. Cool, said Max. I wish I could see one. If you want to make a small compost bin for our classroom, I can show you how to do that tomorrow, said Mrs. Wishy. Yes, 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 we all said. They are really very easy to make. I will bring in the bin. The bottom has to be lined with newspaper. So if you could all bring in some newspaper to make the worm bedding, that would be great. I have lots of newspaper in my recycle bin at home, I said. Me too, said Robbie. Besides, said Mrs. Wishy, recycling is #1 on the Earth Day challenge list. If you bring in newspaper, then you are one step closer to becoming a member of the green team. Remember, the challenge ends tomorrow. The challenge! I was having so much fun today, I almost forgot about the challenge. Time was running out and I still had 4 more things to do. So our challenge ends in 2 days on Friday. So how many things on the challenge list have you been able to cross out? Make sure you check back and see how many you've done. Bye and happy Earth Day.